Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the secrets to stabilizing water quality in marine aquariums using totally natural biological methods. We're looking at a really fantastic breakdown from Saltwater Reef Co. all about refugiums. We're going to explore what they are, why they're, honestly, an absolute game changer for your tank, and exactly how to set one up for maximum success. So if you've spent any time at all in the saltwater reef hobby, you know the drill, right? One week your water parameters look absolutely pristine, and then the next, boom, you're suddenly battling a massive outbreak of nuisance algae and your nutrient levels are just literally through the roof. It's that completely unpredictable, frustrating boom and crash cycle. It can drive even the most patient hobbyist totally crazy. But the material we're looking at today offers a brilliant, natural solution to just kind of smooth out that entire roller coaster. Now, a lot of people just think of a refugium as, another filter, but listen to the actual definition. It's an extra compartment. Maybe it's plumbed right into your main system, or maybe it's run as a separate tank entirely that provides a low-stress, low-predation zone. So it's not just a filter, it's really a dedicated nursery. It's this safe haven where beneficial algae and tiny microfauna can safely thrive without getting eaten or blown around by the heavy currents in your main display. And by creating this safe zone, you indirectly, but super dramatically, improve how your whole main display functions day to day. All right, real quick, here's what we're covering. 1. The Aquarium Balancing Act. 2. 3 practical refugium goals. 3. Setting up for success. And 4. Best macroalgae choices. Okay, Section 1, the Aquarium Balancing Act. Every single aquarium relies on a balancing act of different filtration types. You've got mechanical filtration, like your filter socks or sponges, that physically pull out floating particles and uneaten food. And chemical filtration, removing dissolved contaminants. Those are absolutely crucial for sure. But if you want real long-term stability, you've got to look at biological processes. A well-run refugium is the ultimate biological engine. It uses living organisms to process waste naturally. It's basically mimicking the actual ocean. Mechanical filters, they eventually clog up and need replacing, right? But a biological system, when you balance it correctly, actively adapts and stabilizes your water quality over the long haul. Moving right along to Section 2, 3 practical refugium goals. So the really crucial point here is understanding exactly what this extra compartment is trying to achieve. The source highlights these core practical goals. First up, processing dissolved nutrients. Your fish produce waste, which eventually breaks down into nitrate and phosphate. Well, in a refugium, primary producers like algae actively consume these elements to survive. Second and third, it promotes a steady population of microfauna, things like copepods. Because there's literally no predators in this compartment, these tiny creatures multiply like crazy and eventually get pushed right back into the main display, giving you a constant, totally natural food source for your fish and corals. But check out those last 2 goals. This is where the magic really happens. The refugium acts as a predictable nutrient sink. As the macroalgae absorbs all those nitrates and phosphates, it grows. Then you step in, trim the algae, and just toss it. That simple act of trimming is an incredibly elegant, highly effective nutrient export mechanism. You're physically removing those built-up nutrients from your entire system, giving them a controlled outlet and preventing that dreaded boom and crash effect. Section 3, setting up for success. Whether you're retrofitting an existing sump or, starting a brand new dedicated tank, you've got to follow these 3 steps. Step 1 is flow and location. You want to locate the refugium somewhere with stable temperatures. You absolutely need reliable water turnover from your main system, but actually scratch that, here's the real key. It has to be a moderate, gentle flow. You definitely don't want to blow the sand around or constantly stir up the little organisms. The macroalgae needs time to actually absorb the nutrients as the water passes by. Step 2 is lighting, which is literally the fuel for the algae growth. And step 3 is maintenance. You have to plan for maintenance from day 1. You can't just set the whole shebang up and walk away. Okay, there's a really brilliant pro tip straight from the source regarding that critical lighting, and it's to run it on an opposite schedule to your main display tank. So when your main tank lights shut off at night, your refugium lights kick on. Why do this? Because it actually helps smooth out the daily pH swings that just naturally happen in reef tanks overnight. It's a fantastic biological hack. Now, a quick word of caution from the text here. If your lighting is too weak, algae growth will slow down and it just won't export nutrients. But if the lighting is too strong or you leave it on too long without trimming the algae, you can actually encourage unwanted nuisance algae or filament blooms right inside the refugium itself. You also want to make sure you're using baffles or a divider in your setup. This stops heavy detritus from just dumping straight into the refugium and making a massive mess everywhere. And that brings us to Section 4, Best Macroalgae Choices. You don't just have one option for your biological engine. Your choice really depends on your system's specific nutrient profile and, honestly, how much maintenance you're willing to put up with. Let's look at the first one, Chaetomorpha, or Cheeto, as pretty much everyone in the hobby calls it. This is definitely the most common recommendation. It grows in this crazy thread-like ball shape. This makes it incredibly easy to just reach right in and pull a chunk out to harvest. Plus, the way it's structured makes it way less likely to trap detritus compared to heavier algae types. Honestly, most aquarists start right here. Next up is Gracilaria. This gives you a totally different visual texture and some really rapid growth, but the downside is it can be a bit sensitive to water shifts and might break apart excessively. Then we've got Ulva, which is commonly known as sea lettuce. Now, if you have a massive nutrient problem and need incredibly fast uptake, this is a phenomenal choice. But the trade-off is pretty huge. It spreads so easily, and if it reproduces faster than you can trim it, it fragments and makes a huge mess in your system. Finally, Caulerpa. This one is very popular, but the source specifically warns it must be approached with caution. It has super aggressive growth, and if the biomass is disturbed, it can cause severe issues in your tank. It definitely requires very careful management and highly controlled harvesting. Keeping those specific algae types in mind, there are basically two distinct paths your refugium can take. The wrong way? Setting it up and completely forgetting it. If you don't maintain it, you're literally just building a long-term debris trap. Detritus will build up, the algae will overgrow, and it'll actually become a source of pollution rather than a solution. No way we want that. The right way is viewing it as a completely stable nutrient export method. This means you gotta get your hands wet. It means regular trimming of that macroalgae on a set cycle. It means siphoning out detritus from the bottom of the compartment when it's needed. And it means constantly monitoring your salinity, temperature, and nutrient levels to make absolutely sure the environment is dialed in perfectly. If your nutrients stay stubbornly high, well, you might need to increase your light intensity or fix your flow. If the algae overgrows way too fast, you need to dial back the lighting time or just trim it more often. It's a dynamic living filter. I want to leave you with this really powerful concluding thought from the text. Whichever macroalgae you select, treat the refugium as a living subsystem. I just love that phrasing so much, a living subsystem. The specific plant you choose matters, sure, but the source makes it incredibly clear that consistent lighting, steady water exchange, and scheduled, totally disciplined harvesting matter just as much as your initial choice of algae. You're cultivating a tiny, miniature ecosystem designed completely to serve the greater good of your main display. So look at your own setup right now. Are you still relying purely on mechanical filters and chemical resins while constantly battling those crazy nutrient spikes? Are your corals and fish missing out on a totally natural, steady supply of microfauna? Because if so, the science and the hobbyist experience totally agree here. It might just be time to upgrade your tank's biological filtration and introduce a refugium today.